Thanks for the invitation. I'm Katina Sostmann from Berlin, actually, and I'm working at IXDS. We are a service design company there, and we do a lot of hard and software development for a variety of different companies. So we have a Berlin office, and this is our team, and the specialty of us is maybe that we are 2/3 designers and 1/3 engineers, and all our management is also coming from the design background, so we are really deep into it. And we have 6 industry focuses, and one of that is participatory health. We call it participatory health because we think it is really important to involve the patient into his healthy life. So, services actually are everywhere around us, and a lot of these industries, even the production industry, is shifting towards like service offering industries, and sometimes you're not even recognizing that there is a service behind, but you're dealing in your daily life, you're dealing all the time with them. But what are the expectations in healthcare? Because they are increasing. People are used to like interact with services at an eye level. They are empowered to do their own things. But in the healthcare sector, you always like you go to a doctor, and even the wording is that you get treated by a doctor. So you often feel helpless, you often don't understand what they are talking about because they are using a lot of professional phrases. So the goal is how could you empower the individual? So the healthcare industry is really, really good in integrating new technology stuff. This is not the problem, but to really technology can only be a driver and a carrier for the actual behavior change you wanna initiate. So there the startups are even further, and they disrupt the whole healthcare industry with their really user-centered products. Yeah, but how do you get from an expert device to a real service for the individual patient? So I will tell you 3 little learnings and the key learnings out of it, and some rules you should maybe apply if you want to do like good services for healthcare. So we designed ECG, like a mobile smartphone-based ECG for cardio-secure. And it is easy, you just plug in these hardware wires and connect them to the electrodes, and then you can measure take your ECG wherever you are, at home or on your run, or even if a 24-hour ECG. So how did we do that? It is really helpful if you step into the field and step into the shoes of the patient, actually, but not only the patient, the whole stakeholders in that field. So understanding the motivations and the needs are key in that area. We do a lot of qualitative user research before we start a project, so we really visit people at home, not a lot of people, but intensively. We prepare them to have the abilities to talk about their illness, because it's a really sensitive area. You really have to be careful. So we really love to visit them at home and have this intimate situation where we can also see what they are struggling in their daily lives, and they can show us. We prepare some little kits, homework kits. They can create, and they're really nice designs, so they're easy to use, but you always have something to start with. And it is sometimes, like we already heard from Magda today, that it is hard to tell exactly what your feelings are and what your motivations are, and to get behind the line and see also the hidden challenges and hidden goals of a person. You sometimes have to use little tricks and little methods to carry that and to give them a tool to visualize it for you. So for example, here is a map for all your relationships in the people you're talking to about your illness. So what were the key learnings out of this user research, for example? And this is actually similar to a lot of medical user research we did. So patients don't want to be confronted with their disease. That is the first point. They are often ignoring it, or they often come to a doctor and he asks them, so how are you? And they are saying, oh, I'm fine. And then he's asking further, and are you sleeping well? Yes, I'm sleeping well, but I'm waking up twice a night and have a lot of cough, and I don't can breathe and stuff like that. So they are ending up telling a really horror story. But if you ask them at a first sight, they're just saying, I'm fine. Yeah. So you really have to go behind. And you don't want to be confronted with it, so you have to make a workaround. So they are only sharing their insights and their real worries with a few people, and they don't want to worry their relatives. So they often have only one professional person they are talking to, or maybe one in the family, although they really need the family support. It is important not to only focus on their disease, but to focus on how can you improve actually their well-being. So it's not only like dealing with their illness they really don't want to talk about. They think a lot about it, but if you increase that, they actually just want to live a normal life, and that is the important thing you should focus on. Relatives are always worried, and they often feel helpless dealing with a person because the life is changing. They often have to rearrange their daily routines, and they are just standing outside and can't do anything, and often don't understand what the illness is about. And doctors often think that apps like all these life tracking and lifestyle apps are not really trustworthy. So they really trust only their own tools. So therefore, it is also very important to engage also the professionals from the beginning on. So when we're starting the real creation process, we let all the people participate in it. So we invite doctors, we invite relatives, we invite also people from the caring system like nurses or home caring suppliers to join our creation process and join the testing afterwards, so that we really can make sure that we are not doing something unrealistic but really targeting the needs and the motivation of the people and the person and support the personal goal. So as a designer, you are always up to make the most engaging app ever. So, and this is often the big fault with working with chronic disease patients. We already heard that they don't want to be confronted with their disease. So they really need a companion, which is in the beginning giving them information and make them feel comfortable and feel like as an expert of their illness, and later on getting more and more in the background and not bothering them on a daily basis, just when something really important happens. And so this should also be shown in the interface, and this is the final main interface of this ECG app. You just see it's not really looking medical at all. We try to not visualize all the data, but to reduce it to the main thing the patient has to know, that it is fine or not. And even if you're showing a result, you should always give an advice what to do next, especially when it's a bad result. So it is just like here you can go through all your measurements, and only if it's red, then you really have to it's a real call for action. But be aware, if you do something like this is already a medical product, and you also have to go through all the registration with the algorithm as well. So not only with the product itself. But it is worth it, because this is only, in my opinion, this is the only thing you can help people, if you're showing them what is the status and then showing them as well what they could do. So if you really stick to that, and that has also a diary and some additional informations, so you're ending up with a device. They just give a small and simple feedback, but if you want to, you can dig deeper and get all the information, for example, like the anatomic design of the heart itself, or instructions how you can use the ECG when you forgot, or something like that, or more statistics. But it is just behind the main screen, and you don't have to go there if you don't want to. So the next one is a little device called MeYard, or it's actually it's a kind of an ecosystem already. We started with an app, and it was a little startup. They had an algorithm which can really make good hearing tests and simulate a hearing aid. So it was basically the whole code behind a hearing aid, and you can use it with a smartphone and with earplugs. And what it is crucial about this hearing topic is that actually 25% of all people with hearing disabilities are not really treated. They don't want to even hear. It's a real taboo theme in our society. So we thought of what could we do to really motivate them to make a real testing and maybe get some help. And we decided to do it with a positive experience. So if you can just do it on your own at home, or maybe with your father if you're a relative, and then you don't have to fear any bad results. You just get a profile, and after this profile, you can listen to your normal music library or surrounding sound, and it is just enhanced in the way you have to have enhancement if you have a hearing loss. So by this, you're in the first experience is just to hear better music. So, and this might motivate you in a better way to go to a doctor and maybe get a hearing aid, or just use this tool to listen to your music. And that was interesting because when they started, the startup had a totally different business case. They just wanted to make money by the transferring a patient to an audiologist. And in the end, they ended up with partnering up with audiobook and music suppliers. So this can also happen because the experience was key feature of the app, so they shifted their business model. And in the end also, they built up their whole company structure on top of participatory development. Actually, they now have a big department in engaging users for further development, because they were so convinced of this process of engaging them in an early stage. The third one is our recent research project it was called like creating ambient notification systems for people with increasing cognitive disability. So if you're getting Alzheimer or something like that, you might forget things. So how can the environment actually give you a hint on your daily task that you maybe forgot, to water your plants, to take your medicine or whatever, or drink enough water, to keep up your independency and to live longer on your own. So, and in the research phase, it was pretty interesting that we recovered that all the people actually don't want to have like a whole fully controlled system, which a lot of like the AI systems cover, like carpets where you can recognize when somebody's falling, and cameras that track you all the time and call your relatives, which are normally like far away, 3 hours to drive or something like that. So actually pretty helpless in that situation. And they also don't want to, often it is just a little you just forgot. Yeah. So maybe it is just enough to call your neighbor is just looking after you. So after that, we came up with a real physical, like little tiny smart button that you can just put somewhere, because we also learned that people, the first thought was like, okay, can we use like a smartphone to remember them? But nobody of those age uses a smartphone, and they will not learn it because they are not having the abilities to learn something really new. And then, okay, then we have to switch to the television, but it would be very, very spooky if your television just talks to you and say, hey, take your medicine. So we really wanted to put the notifications where they should be. So we can combine with this button, we can combine like a task with an object. And we had you can also, I go back, you can also stick a tiny little poster to it, and there you can write it, because sometimes you will lose the connection between the object and the task, and sometimes you will forget the name of the object. So it is good to have all this correlation between a written task and the location and the object itself. But these buttons are smart, yeah, so they can give feedback if you're doing well and everything is fine. But when the task is coming up, it's getting yellow. And this is something we found out, that they can learn like easy feedback at a time. So easy. One single feedback can be learned, as well as when you are already in the early stage of Alzheimer. So they get a yellow feedback and a red one when it's overdue, and it can make some sound. And it is combined also with in the background. Of course, you have all these behavior tracking stuff, and you can also combine it with an alarm or notification to your neighbor or somebody around that can just pass by and have a look what's going wrong. And with these tracking, you can also recognize, like in an early stage, you can recognize behavior changes, so that you can decide with your relatives and your doctor if you have to get additional help. But it was very, very important that they want to have a tool that they can control themselves first before be controlled by others. Because one lady said, I have a paper basket there, and every time I take my medicine, I throw some paper in the basket so that I can go up and see if I have taken my medicine. So a simple indicator that let them still control themselves, and then scale it to maybe another system. It can be also connected to this whole kind of tracking background, but it can also work on itself. And it is a really various phase of these. The illness is really tricky, so you have like a variety of stages, and sometimes they are long, sometimes they are small. The stage of the where you are still able to live on your own, but you are already struggling with daily tasks, and therefore it is good to have something really cheap and accessible for everybody, and you can just buy 30 of these little buttons, and if you did the task, just click on it. So what are the principles of design in healthcare? I just forgot. A nice method we developed within this research project, because normally research projects are really hard to handle in agencies because they are lasting a long time and only one person is working on it and not really fitting, and then it is really slow and you're not really coming up with something you can develop further. So we did a little designathon within our company with our own teams, and they did like a real within 2 days, they did a real pitch presentation in the end of their concept they came up with. And we had a jury from external startup academy and some healthcare guys coming over, and also the users and somebody from the healthcare suppliers. So they could put money into it, and the team that won, they had 3 months of development, and after these 3 months, they had the opportunity to start a startup out of it. And therefore, we built also the IXDS labs, where you can have our own startups to throw out if they are just coming out of the team. Okay, so service design, I don't know if you're all familiar with this, with the term. It is basically, it's in a series of experiences over a period of time, where people are interacting with an offer, a company's offer, through different touch points. And these touch points could maybe like your smartphone, but also a nurse taking an appointment at a doctor, and the next time maybe the real big medical instruments measuring something, and in the end also the doctor telling you the results. So you have a variety of touch points throughout your own journey maybe, and then you have to make sure that for the user, because it is his journey, you should come up with a consistent experience over the whole path. Yeah, otherwise you have breakpoints, and then you're telling your story again and again, and that is taking time for everybody. But be aware, there is something behind it. So you should not only focus on the interface upfront, but underneath there's the whole real setup and system of logistics you should not forget, and you have to combine all these. Otherwise, you're not really offering a holistic service, and you could not go through this as a seamless chain. But if you're establishing like a good service experience, then you can really grow a relationship over time, and maybe you're starting off with an education and understanding of your illness, and including maybe also environmental data and knowledge out of the internet, and you're educating the patient on his own illness, and integrating the doctor that he doesn't need to really to be so much involved, and then it can scale to monitoring and self-monitoring, and then it can even scale more to real medical treatment. So this is pretty interesting if you can start with something small and integrate the whole system. And a lot of companies are afraid of going into this treatment because of all the regulations, but I think it is, I already said, I think it is worth it. So what does that mean for you as a designer? From chronic to disease to behavior change, I think that is the goal. So you're not dealing with the illness and the symptom treatment, but you really should come up with something that supports to reach your personal goals. And then often you get like you should interpret misleading data into something that you really can understand. Yeah, so that it is personalized to your level of understanding, only reduced to the information that is necessary in that situation and for you personally. Then you also should shift from passive treatment to active decision support. So in best case, the user is his own expert on his illness, and is only the doctor is only the coach he needs when he needs some expert information and some active decision making to support him with the needed information to do so. But you should be more involved. You should be more responsible and also more in power of managing himself. And that also means that you have to accompany the patient over the whole time and not leaving him alone with only few appointments where you can see his doctor, but you should really be there with a service that supports him when he is needed and he needed to, because there's always a gap when you're going out of the hospital. Nobody really, the normal patient is, for example, for rehabilitation, the patients are often falling back in their normal behavior. They are not keeping up with the exercises they should do because they are afraid of just making something wrong or something like that. So you really have to make sure that there is a support after your hospital stay, for example, or in between the appointments with the doctor. And actually, if you read that, you are also decreasing the stress of the doctors to give him more time to really interact with the patient, because all these double collected information and also the understanding of some stuff or the interpretation to translate it into your level of knowledge. It takes always time, and all the bureaucracy behind as well. So if you're considering how can we also reduce the workload from the doctor, then you end up with a more focused, patient-focused time left for the professionals. So summing up all this, you really should change your perspective from treating illness to supporting personal goals. That means like healthcare is the most human industry field, so make it please the most human-centered industry field. And you are up to design it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting, especially talking about design that you actually know that makes a difference, to people, to your users. That's really important. So, guys, if you have any questions, it's time for them now. I can see there is one person already there.
Hi, I'm very interested in the one thing. What's about the law? For example, because I've seen your application that is designed to monitor the heart. What in case of problems with this device? What if someone will tell you that, for example, it might happen that there was some bug or whatever that didn't catch some problems with the heart and something has happened. What then?
So actually it is the same thing as you make an ECG as a doctor, so that run through the whole process of real medical application. So it is as reliable as a product as a doctor's. Pardon? Yeah. So of course, when you get a wrong feedback and something is wrong, that is worst case scenario. But actually, in the correlation between your feeling and getting an expert of your own and your own situation, and having just a possibility, you can control your ECG at home first before you see the doctor. But in most cases, people are just worried and they don't want to go to the doctors because it's so stressful, but they are not sure if they are really doing good. And so for this phase, actually, it is really reducing stress because you can just make the ECG at home, and if it's not really, if something is really wrong and they are still worried, but the ECG is saying, oh, everything is okay, they can see the doctor anyway. But for this often situation where they are not really secure, you may have something to rely on.
I want to ask a question about, let's say, design app itself. So all of those apps, do they have an option of creating kind of a report for a doctor? Because I guess when you're using it at home, the doctor would like to see, I don't know, 24/7 report from your heart, I know, measurements or whatever. Yeah. So my question is, can you export those data and send it to, I don't know, doctor computer or whatever?
Yeah, there are different options. So some of them have a connection and an API to just send it to the doctor's device, because there is additional device also for professionals. With a Mimi, for example, you can just turn the screen and then you see the professional audiogram of your testing, which is not understandable for normal humans and not readable. So we try to translate it in something that you know, like these equalizer sign that you know from your daily life, and to give an interpretation which is not really medically correct, but to show what's gonna happen and what's happening when you're increasing, like you turn on your hearing aid. Actually, what does that mean? That is not only increasing the volume; it is also decreasing the range of frequency you have. So that you're a little bit more familiar and into the stuff, but you're not, and you don't have to dig and deal with these complicated audiograms you never will understand at the first sight. But there is the option to see that as well, because that is also a learning thing. Yeah, if you do it all in parallel, people get used to it and understand it. So in the first sight, you have to decrease the hurdles to use it, and later on, when they are already expert, because they are dealing they are daily on a daily basis, they are dealing with their disease, then they are familiar with everything and maybe even more expert than their doctor.
Hi, I have a question regarding the hint device.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that it's initially programmed to set some sort of reminders. Is that a two-way street, though? Is data collected within the device and is then sent back to whatever programs it?
Yeah, you're just setting up the buttons in a smartphone application, so you can connect the task to a schedule or something like, and an alert and stuff like that. So if it's what kind of alert does it? What kind of notification will you get, or will the neighbor get, or the relative, or whatever? And when you press the button because you fulfilled the task, then it is tracking back. Yeah. So there is a communication between those two, and there you can, and therefore you can also see the behavior change over a certain time. And if you're forgetting more and more things, then maybe you should come up with something else.
Hi. Yeah. Nice project, or a couple of them. But I'm also curious about the hint project. Currently, I'm also facing out to put technology in the wrist of my grandfather because it needs to be monitored. But yeah, it's a tough guy. So I think there is a lot of technology to help elderly people, but there is a lot of resistance in using it, apart from the thing that they need to have a smartphone. I will not even go there. Did you guys face some sort of resistance in your user testing, or consider that part to the user acceptance? So
far we went the first round user testing, and we are rolling it out to a broader, like with two retired homes in addition. And the acceptance was really, really good. They really liked the physical and easy feedback and the physical interface to really press the button, done. And nobody of them had problems to learn the system and how it works. So because it was like only one feedback at a time, one task at a time in a linear row.
Yeah, does this work? Yes. Okay. I have a sort of similar question, but about an earlier stage, how you recruit people to do research with, because I'm guessing that you're quite involved in their lives, following them around and sort of looking at their illnesses, which might be very personal.
And for the relatives, looking after their...
Yeah, so like how do you recruit these people, and like how do you convince them that this is... So are they willing? Are they sort of worried? Like what's the process?
Actually, over the time we have a big data pool out of this user base, and all the users that that are taking place on one user research, they are coming back and they say, oh, please come up to me next time, because they were really, really excited about the feedback they gave, that it is really, really being included in a real product. And later on, we are involving them in the testing phase as well, so they really see how their feedback is implemented in a product. And I think this is the more incentive than giving them money. We are also doing that for the time, but and to find those people, actually we are just spreading it over our network and spreading it, for example, via certain Facebook sites, in correlation with the topic or something like that, but mainly our network. And to convince that, we really write a nice screener that is really personal. We call the people, we tell them that how much time it will be to be involved. We visit them, so we make it most comfortable for them and most easy. Even on the weekend, we are going there, so we try to make it as comfortable as possible. But of course, it is. I'm always taking part of these user research as well, so it takes time, but it's always fun. That is why we really try to make these little gadgets and the time really playful, because people really, they get a gift. It feels like getting a gift. We send them via postal, and then they are opening it, and they have all these little tiny tasks and nice design stuff they can play with. So actually, this is the motivation to do so.
One more for me. I'm just interested in any of your projects are like open source, so like programmers like the guy before, they can find then different usage of the devices that you invented. So that you can get in the future extra features, add extra features to already existing project. It differs actually, because of the research project. Actually, yes, of course, it is kind of open source, and we are still developing it further. Of the other two, because we are just paid for developing the design part of it or the user experience part of it, we are not involved in the coding. So mainly for the Cardio Secure, the coding was, and also for the Mimi, the coding was done by the startup itself. And they were pretty close working with us, so sitting in our office, and we had like one team, but we are not actually having any access to the code. But I can give you the contact if you're interested.
I was wondering if you have any clients in other countries, or if you're just based in Germany right now.
No, we have other clients in other countries, for example, in California, and in Finland. And
I was just curious if there might be any culture gaps in how elderly people with Alzheimer's react to taking medication and being forgetful.
Yeah, there are always cultural gaps. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with connected home devices or whatever. So you really have to go into the country to understand the users there. So you can't make a workaround of that phase, and we are really, really forcing our clients to do so. Otherwise, they are really wasting money. You really have to understand the needs first, and then go for the development.
Thank you.
And what is actually a nice for the recruitment as well. So we also try to recruit extreme users, like those who are really not digital or those who are only digital. So really the edge case users, and our clients always ask, but this is not the normal average. But we don't do like quantitative user research. So for us, it doesn't make sense to know what does the average, but what are the real challenges. And because the results are not to tell that this is facing 80% of the people, but to build some development on it. So these are actually the features, and often people have really, really nice hacks in their daily life, like the lady with the paper already. So with these hacks, actually, you already have your first feature.
Okay, guys, thank you very much, and thank you, Katina. This is a small gift from
Thank you
MCE
very much.
organizers.
Thanks.
Thank you. If you have any more questions for Katina or any other organizers, any other speakers and organizers too, there's a great opportunity to ask them at our after party, which is in Zamieszanie at 8:30. You're all welcome. Will be a lot of fun. Thank you so much, and see you tonight and tomorrow. Thank you.